Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. In respect to your time, I would like to begin promptly at the start of 1 o'clock. We have 90 minutes, and I'm just so privileged to be here. And Larry, as you know, is the MC. Oh.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. My name is Larry Lynn with the Social Sciences Subcommittee. Welcome to Retirement Living Options. Our speaker this afternoon is Meredith Jackson. Meredith is a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Schmidt. She specializes in both residential and commercial properties. Meredith has an SRES designation. I looked that up. That stands for Senior Real Estate Specialist. With that, she has the knowledge and expertise to guide homeowners and sellers over the age of 50 through major financial and lifestyle transitions. It took Meredith over 10 years of working for the leading retirement living management companies, home builders, and developers to be able to share with you today some empowering insights. She worked for one of the oldest nonprofits, the Admiral at the Lake, a 31-story senior high-rise on Chicago's lakefront. Very expensive too. Meredith was born in Stuttgart, Germany, and was raised in Connecticut and Wheaton, Illinois. After attending Georgia State University, she lived in downtown Chicago for 13 years, and in 2018, moved to Grand Haven. Meredith loves to play tennis, cook, walk her dog, and spend time with family and friends. Please join me in welcoming Meredith Jackson.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much, Larry. Wow, it's always a little overwhelming to hear yourself be spoken to, and especially in front of a group of such high caliber. I feel that the 10 years I took to work for different management companies has really equipped me today to confidently share with you the things that I want you to be able to have in mind for when you're researching and planning. So please have this hour and a half of time be uplifting, empowering, and I sprinkle in a little bit of fun. I think lifelong education is really a beautiful way to keep mind and body strong and engage with others. So as somebody who never enjoyed formal education, please understand that my format is a little less standardized because I hope for this hour and a half to keep us moving, but yet talk about some subject matters that you necessarily wouldn't want to be asking about unless you have to. And I really think that when you need to have to learn about something, it usually doesn't process as well as when you can do it in a setting like this where it's a little bit more less pressurizing. So what you have in front of you is a bag that has, I hope, for things to keep you entertained throughout this, or at least some nourishments. Please keep hydrated, have a little cowtail. I know the Samras little cream liqueur might seem random, but I was able to get those donated. So I wanted to share, and I can at the end explain a little bit more about the celebratory cream liqueurs, but we're going to start with Think Global, Act Local. And I really believe that there are things on a global perspective and a national perspective, and then right here, that are all worth being able to exchange and know about. And once you're able to think of those, how do you apply it? How do you make those options really work for you? And how in the heavens are these financials established? Who writes what assisted living, memory support, long-term care policies cost, and how the government reimburses you? You know, these layers are so complex, it's almost easier to put your head in the sand and not know how to navigate. But I hope today to give you some insights. The actuarial forecast comes from a client I had who wrote the formulas for the government and long-term care policies. So it's a packet I have handed out to you that is very substantial. It's a little even above my head, but it's something for you to take and really be able to maybe exchange with family or friends to apply it to your own circumstances. I'm very excited that we have Ben Bastianen, who is going to be zooming in today. Ben is a former client. He is straight from Holland. One thing I learned when moving to West Michigan is you're not much if you're not Dutch. And I thought, who better to speak of inspiring retirement options than a Dutchman himself? I hope that you can take from Ben's inspiring retirement plan just some good takeaways. Right? Not all of us will be able to have a house in Italy or travel on a cargo ship around the world, but he has done it in such a way that I think we can all be inspired. So he's going to be here for 15 minutes. He moved or deposited at a community before it was even broken ground. So I think he has a good insight to, do you plan on a community that doesn't even have bricks and mortar? What is the difference between moving into a community pre-construction or not even operational, and what is 10 years later with staff turnover? Is it truly the same community that you originally had moved into? So I think that he's going to be a very good person because he's lived it. I can talk about it, but I think Ben is going to add some nice perspective. Lynn helped distribute the rocks. Find your rock group and SWAT. So towards the end of the presentation, I hope for everyone to identify with other believe or hope and come together and work on a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of here in our community. And I hope this exercise is something that you can personalize to your own it's a more advanced pro and con way to dissect where you are at in your retirement. What I truly believe is that the best thing you have is one another in a community of people to lean on. I think the best exchange comes from incubators like people today. And I hope for 2:30 raffle tickets, and throughout our presentation, I will ask 2 questions. In your bag, you have 20 tickets, and you should also all have a dry erase board. I'm hoping in a section of your dry erase board, you'll put tallies. So this is an honesty policy. For every question you get correct in the trivia, give yourself a tally. That tally will equate to your raffle tickets. So Larry is going to help collect the raffle tickets, and we're going to have some prizes to give away and just make it a little fun. So without further ado, let's think global and act local. I wanted to start with how Japan approaches retirement, because they don't even have a word for retirement. It's called ekika. Ekika is a Japanese concept meaning reason for being. And what I think is so beautiful about this, and how I've kind of summarized it, is if you work too much, you die. If you work too little, you die. You always have to have purpose. So you will find people well into their 80s or 90s picking rice in a paddy. And what I think is so amazing about the Japanese culture is the wisdom that people well into their 80s and 90s share into the community. And so I really hope for the conditioning we've had of what we think about retirement to be elevated a bit. I think we're all told, work, 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 save, save, save. And then you get there and you go, well, now what? I don't want to spend too much because I don't want to outlive my assets. I work too hard to just put it into somebody else. And I really, again, will go through different ways that I think that you can apply some of these ideas to make a very good uplifting retirement. So in all studies, in most management companies I've worked for, they always do case studies and feasibilities and really kind of query into what people most care about, and that purpose and a sense of daily belonging is what we as humans are very much ingrained to have. Larry mentioned I was born in Stuttgart, Germany, and it's deeply rooted, even though I was so young and don't remember much. But the traditions of the food and just the overall efficiencies of things. What my mom always reminded me of is that you're streamlined at a younger age. Are you going to be somebody in military? Are you going to be somebody in academia? And so they have a tendency to very quickly identify the strengths that people have through school. Upon graduation in high school, you have two options really: to begin in a military volunteer or to do 2 years working in senior communities. After you've completed that time, you're given a stipend to apply to college or keep just in the working of military or public service. So it's not even unknown for an 18 or 19-year-old to know how to do hands-on caregiving. And I think that's something that we don't have as a formalized way to make intergenerational care. And I think what COVID brought to such a light was, how do we have the staff that gives the necessary care at a rate that companies can afford? And so I'll get into more of those types of layers, but just kind of thinking about what's going on over in Germany. I thought it was interesting in Texas, they're opening a community where this is actually in Texas and Arizona. Every resident moving to this community is required to do an X amount of hours. So it's not as if you're just coming to a community and saying, I'm going to pay you money and therefore I get everything done. Oh no, it's participatory. You have 20 hours to be in the library, 20 hours to be in the dining, and it reduces your costs. So what a purposely built-in way to say, at every level of your life, you can contribute in some way. I think that we are too siloed in what different levels of care are, because at every level, there's something that can be contributed. My goodness, Florida. I would like to believe everyone in this room has been there. Show of hands. Show of hands that it's where you want to retire and have health care. It's a real, every state has a different form of how they regulate staff to resident ratios, payouts, and really look into that, because there's some things happening in Michigan that makes my head spin, because I had never heard of that in Illinois or in Georgia. So the local kind of regulations. California, woo, everything loose rolls west. My grandma was a Massachusetts, and she said anything loose rolls west, and thought California was a wild place. And I really love this community opening on a previously, it was a vineyard. They bought the land. It's right outside of San Francisco. They partnered with the Zen community to do all types of Tai Chi and organic gardening. They sold out in about 6 months. So that said to me, that's a high priority for people to have land, walkability, and beauty. Here in West Michigan, there's a lot of things coming, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with it. So I can only imagine the different things you might be getting in mails and emails and friends deciding on communities. So I'm going to deeper dive into some of the local things, but I hope the biggest takeaway is you have ideas that are going on, and then how can you bring it to your own area and group like HASP or the community you're at. I'm going to ask any questions about Think Global, Act Local before we do a trivia and move on to our next portion.
Please, if anybody has a question, raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you.
I love it. Great. Okay. In Japan, what do, let me think about this, how I want to phrase global. What is one thing here in Holland that we do not have that some of the other countries do? I'm looking for one example of how another country or another part of the country operates that we do not have here in Michigan. If you can write that on your dry erase board, hold it up. And my trivia is very interpretive. So what is going on a national or global level that we do not have here in Michigan? Anything? Yep. I love it. Okay, I'm seeing universal health care. Give yourself a point. So that point now is a raffle ticket. So, okay, let's see it. Yes, yes. Nice winter weather. Oh, yes, that's a point. Global insurance. Yep. Diversity. Yes. I think that, and I'm going to talk more on. Oh, could you say that? I think that is a very strong thing that should be more verse. That's a point. Yes, I think those kind of go hand in hand. Requiring for volunteer and retirement or having a more formalized group of ways to add. If you couldn't think of anything, you don't get a point. But if correct, okay, we're off. We found this. Options that fit individual needs. Now, we can go a lot of different places with this. You all have options, and I want you very much to feel you are in the driver's seat and you are the one making decisions. You can stay right where you are. You can downsize to a first floor master or bedroom. You can declutter your home to allow for modifications, ramps, zero thresholds. Look at that cost. Is it worth doing? I think that this is an exciting concept. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, or granny and grandpa pods. So many, I think, adult children only want parents to be happy, cared for, and safe. And to think of an outside community is a little off-putting because who are they and what are they going to be doing? But living within the home can be overly stressful. So building small, tiny homes in the backyard is becoming a trend. South Carolina and North Carolina have builders just to put in ADUs. So if you have a family member that's on land and they're saying, you know what, I'm too worried about you, come, I'd really like for you to have. My mom said, you're putting me in the doghouse. And I said, do we need a home? So however you look at it, it's perception, but I think it's just a nice way to utilize the trends of these tiny homes at land and stay connected as a family, if that is an option. Exhilarating accessory dwelling unit. So it's in addition to a single family house that has its own sleeping, probably just a kitchenette, bathroom, maybe 500, 600 square feet, a outside area of a home that you live off of what your family does. So you're not sleeping under the same roof. You kind of have your own apartment.
Understand.
Yeah, we have a Zoom audience, so they can't hear the question. So yes, please raise your hand. Thank you.
I understand a number of ADUs are controversial and not allowed by zoning regulations. How about West Michigan? Do you know how the regulations size up there?
Excellent question. Zoning is something that each city regulates differently. What I would like to believe is majority rules. So if there are enough people that say my family member needs to be on premise, I think that supersedes Airbnb, short-term rentals. It would still have to fall in with the zoning, but city planning, I think, is at a point of trying to understand how do we accommodate the aging population, the baby boomers, in a way that doesn't alienate them only to having an option of moving to a community, or, I think we have an opportunity to open up more ways for families to allow. I know, for example, in Grand Haven, you can only have 4 chickens in your chicken coop, and that took about 3 years to get approved, so squeaky wheel gets the grease. But specifically, I do not know what the regulations are because of the zoning at each, but push for it if it's something that you really want.
We have a friend right here in Holland who is planning to do a build on because it's not zoned to have a separate accommodation. So it was going to have to be connected to the existing home, which was going to be fine. But the price was overwhelming for a very small, tiny house. It was over $350,000 right here in Holland.
So what that says to me is we don't have the labor and the materials to functionally get something like South Carolina has already implemented. From the little I've seen, they come in kits. You spend about $30,000 for just the standard Sears catalog kit, and then you probably will double that cost for labor and finish work. I can never think that spending that type of resource for the result is any reason to move forward on that. But yeah, and that's where the cost prohibits. I would very much step outside what the local contractors are able to do and see by maybe even bringing in from Chicago or going a couple hours outside and bringing somebody who's already doing that type of build out at a more reasonable price. 3 quotes, 3 quotes. But thank you for sharing that insight and example. Okay. Home health pods. A lady I worked with at Erickson Retirement Communities way back when branched out. She's developing communities without bricks and mortar. So she has a nurse, a driver, a beauty care, basically all the amenities and services that can be offered within a community. She's offering as a membership so that you can group together. Maybe it's with your neighbor or just a random person, or it's your HASP group, and get all of the resources that you need in a set go-to person. It's kind of a buy-in, her model, but I think it's a really nice way for all things to be managed without so many multiple. Who do you call for lawn? Who do you call for this? Get a management company that offers those services bundled. And I haven't seen it here, but it's happening and it's doing very well in other parts of the country. There's 55 and older communities. Get a little bit of break on tax. Don't have to worry about the pool getting littered with too many kids. But do you still have the things that will keep mind and body strong and be surrounded? You know, I very much believe that bricks and mortar are not the keys to what will be successful. It's the people. And so, yes, you have probably a beautiful home, but is it serving you in the way that will give you the foundation for long term? Continuing care retirement communities, CCRCs. Show of hands, how many have heard of this concept or has toured before? Great, great. Okay. It's kind of near and dear to my heart because of one, working for them, but also where my parents live, at the Admiral at the Lake that Larry described. It's a through and through nonprofit. It has different financial structures that I'll hit on. And very much an all-inclusive. I describe continuing care retirement communities as a real estate option, long-term care policy, and kind of a country club membership, all in one, and access to a higher level of healthcare at an under market rate. Yes.
Yeah, the option you pointed out, the package. Where can we get information regarding what's involved with what the package provides and how one is established?
The organization that the former colleague I've had that started out of South Carolina, I can share the link to hers. There's a few larger companies. Kendall, for example, is doing one in Ohio. So there's a lot of management companies that are seeing 80% of people will never consider moving to a structured community. But how do they still help serve those staying in their home? I will probably have to follow up and email out the links to those examples so that you can have that more deeper research into where in the country. Great. I love that you want to learn more about and possibly get that over here. The thing with continuing care retirement communities is it's predicated on your independence and health. So how that long-term care policy weaves into it is if you have a pre-existing condition, it really kind of strips away the care for life in a sense of the financials. So if you have any major pre-existing condition, most continuing care communities will say, sure, move in. Yes, pay all the funds. However, if you need that higher level of care, it might be at a higher or at market rate, not a reduction in market rate. So you buy into these continuing care communities to allow for your resources to not get spent down in market rate healthcare. You pay a below market rate because of the buy-in that you've paid, but it can be tricky. At 80 years old, I don't know how many people don't have a pre-existing condition. And what it said to me is, they're taking a high risk by investing in. Why aren't you risking a higher type? And that's where the for-profit and nonprofits play a big role. And I'll talk more into that. Today, I'm really trying to give this 30,000 aerial view so that you can start to learn on, I need to know more about that, or I never want to have that as my option. Memory care and assisted living. Very different here in Michigan. Laura, who sets all of the regulations for it, doesn't do as much as I would have thought with staff to resident ratios. And really, it's tiered. You know, in Illinois, when you say assisted living, that's dressing, bathing, medication, everything you need to be assisted. What I find here in Michigan, it's very much a la carte. Basics are given at a rate, let's use on average about $4,000 a month. and that's to have light housekeeping, bedding, dining, social. But if you need somebody to actually be hands-on to assist, that can be easily another $1,000 a month. If you need anyone to even help with medication, probably another $1,000 a month. And what I found with families and future residents was, wait a minute, I'm paying for being here. Why don't I get the care? Because you don't have all of the added on packages that come with the full amount of care. And so I hope it's very, very known by not only yourself, but of your loved ones, what is truly going to be provided and at what cost. I don't think there was anything more disheartening to come and visit a loved one and go, what do you mean? They're in the same clothes that they were in last week. Well, you don't have changing being paid for. So you really just have to have the expectations on par with what services will be provided and at what price. The biggest difference between an assisted living and memory care is security and much more structured types of daily activity. Dementia has so many different types of layers that I have seen people successfully age in an independent apartment with some modifications and not need to have an area where there's a keypad and it's secure. People with dementia can wander at night, and that's very scary. I've seen some very, very sad cases where the mind just forgets. And if you're not in a safe setup, it can be a crisis that you could avoid. Technology is doing some really interesting things, though. If it's doorbells and reminders, there's a really solid amount of technology that can help create the security. But again, it's really identifying the individual needs that each person has. Catered living is kind of a new trend that I have mixed feelings about because it's predicated on independence, and then you can layer on additional help coming in. So maybe you don't need dressing, but you need medication management. So they cater to the types of added services that you may need within your apartment. That's a trend going more in Grand Rapids. This community, I was very surprised to hear, was able to get financed through real estate transaction. Typically, senior communities is a healthcare transaction, nothing to do with real estate. This was the first community that got financed through a real estate company. So just how do you keep up with these trends and who's managing? I think one of the coolest things here is Evergreen Commons, because of the different types of activities and physical exercises. Again, it's kind of creating that community without the bricks and mortar, but where do you go to have that? Online communities, kind of that same pod of resources, but everything just virtual. And I don't know about you, I'm so tired of going online to have virtual things. I need a human, but that's becoming very popular. I hope for all of you to know about Road Scholar, but I have a feeling that you all do. Hands up. Oh, isn't it a great one? Elder Hostel is what I knew it first as. And I thought, I want to do that because it just has such a lifelong learning of global ways to get out and explore with a group. Here at HAS, I think that the alumni groups and having a college that feeds so deeply into the roots of the community is such a gift. And I very much hope you all give what you can to make this even a more enjoyable group. Independence, I think, has such a huge part to do with transportation. I think the moment the idea that your car is not going to be a part of your daily is the moment you feel like you don't have anything else to try to get out and do. And I very much think, and please understand, you're talking to somebody that lived downtown without a car. And so a 1 mile walk is with groceries is just, city living. But we have a downtown that really gives you so much walkability. And if you do not live in a walkable area, connect to the transportation services that are provided. I think that putting that pressure on yourself to keep a car, the maintenance of it, there's enough things now that you can still get out and about without the need to be doing it yourself. Yes.
What's the difference between catered living and home health pods?
Okay. Thank you. Catered living is offered more through a bricks and mortar community. They're not going to label it an independent community. They're not going to label it an assisted community. They're going to call it catered living. And it's this in between of predicating on the independence. However, you can get a lot of assisted right within. So you don't have to go from an independent apartment then over to an assisted living setup. So it's an ability to age in one place that you've moved to. Correct. And then compared to a pod, which is a group of people, a certified nurse, usually a person to do hair and nails. It would be very great to have a neurologist or an audiologist. It pulls together all of the people that can help you stay healthy while staying at home.
One follow-up would it be possible for a group of neighbors and friends and relatives to just create their own home health pod? And if so, what are the constituent parts of that?
I am so happy you're taking it to that. And that's very much what I hope for these ideas to give to you, is the empowerment to say, I would prefer something like that. Home healthcare agencies are there based on needs. Be more proactive. Say, I need to know who is going to be providing what service and for at what rate. And yes, I think that maybe you have the great opportunity to develop something like that right here. The one in Ohio that Kendall at Home is doing is roughly a buy-in of about 100,000. Yeah, but again, it's not predicated on age, pre-existing. They're saying, give us this big lump sum, and then for the remainder of your life, we will give the resources that we have in our community to come to you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a transportation expert. Well, I'm an expert, but a guy that has hung around transportation a while. But I want to discuss a friend of mine who is director of government affairs for Amtrak for the Midwest and the problem he sees here in this part of this meeting. Chicago and Grand Rapids have things like taxi cabs, Ubers, and Lyfts. Holland does not have these. Now you say, wait a minute, I just got on Uber and they have a car there. Maybe run now, but it doesn't run later. The train gets in here at 10:30 at night from Chicago. It doesn't run at that hour. Now we do have Dial-A-Ride, but again, that runs only limited hours during the day and specifically never goes to any part of Park Township, Lake Town, or Fillmore.
Just up to Grand Haven. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, they don't even go. So my question is, you mentioned transportation. If you're carless, how do you get around here except walk? Now, or during the day on the Dial-A-Ride if you're in Holland Township?
Such a good question. And in my experience, the types of transportation that caters more are more handicapped accessible vans getting to the hospital. And then you're paying a much higher rate than taxis. When we do our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, I think we're going to deeper dive into that. So I will not have all the answers, but I think what I've seen in my time is that when there's enough will, it's amazing what gets done. You baby boomers hold the most amount of assets. Management companies know this, and I hate to have to say money is power, but hold the cards, demand what you need, because if you don't, my generation won't have it either. So I think it's really important that we all say we deserve better, we want better. my taxes deserve to have something. Yes.
So just a comment, Kindle at Home in Ohio, Northern Kentucky, et cetera, is a spinoff and an affiliate of the Kindle CCRC communities that are all around the country. And so they're moving in that direction. They were all brick and mortar, but now they're looking and saying there's a lot of people who can't afford to come to a Kindle facility, community. And so how are we going to provide services and how do we keep building our business without having the capital costs? So they've professionalized it. But, you know, for years, this is what neighbors did for each other. This is also what happens in condo communities and other places. So
If you're so
Thank you.
lucky. Yes. I'm so happy that you've done some research to see how companies are evolving to that. Coming into the management styles and different administrations and community cultures, my list is just because of the order I've worked at them. So I want to start with Erickson Retirement. Has anyone heard of Erickson Living, Erickson Retirement? This is an interesting one, and I want it to be an example because it really shook my foundation and thought, how in the world did a nonprofit do something this financially drastic? So Erickson Living is out of Maryland, was the first community John Erickson opened. And as a developer, what I know to be true with developers and for-profits, it is putting a stake in the ground, and if you build it, they will come, as opposed to a non-for-profit, which follows much stronger mission-driven values. Erickson in 2005 was at about 10 communities. By 2008, they had 14 in their portfolio, grew to over 26. By 2009, no one's house could support their entry fees. It was a huge bankruptcy sitting at my desk on the Wall Street Journal, coming out, you know, I'm in my early 20s, bankrupt. How we have move-ins coming. So what Erickson's model is creating a non-for-profit at a community level, feeding into a for-profit higher corporate management. So yes, it might be solvent at the community level, but at a corporate level, it was hemorrhaging money because it was reinvesting to keep developing. And history will repeat itself. So they had to restructure, sell off different communities, but the residents that had purchased into went, why do I not get everything that my brochure said? And so I don't want to be so much fear-based, but just know those are very common. I hate to use the word common, but if a community does not have a stabilized occupancy, property management will look at it in one of two ways: sell it off or get it to a stabilized occupancy so that it's a moneymaker. While I was there, I thought there's got to be something better. My dad was, you know, doing his research, and why I felt so empowered to, or driven to want to research was, is he going to be living with me, or are we going to find a good community that we can trust? I can't speak enough good things about Kendall. It is only CCRC that is ranked as a AAA ranking. They are through and through nonprofit. It was a gift from the Quakers in the 70s to begin their first community. So Quaker-based values, all by consensus. They grow by invitation only. But what made me really want to get to talk with Hope College is they grow by invitations from alumni groups. So lifelong learning is very much instilled in their core values and missions. Dartmouth, Washington, and Lee. And they empower each resident to lead different clubs and committees. It's not a, you know, resident representative saying, okay, we're going to have movie and this going on. It's a resident saying, I want to have this movie. It's going on here. So the resident driven communities. And when I was working, I thought, who's leading who? It's really neat when you have such the intelligence and wisdom of residents that can say, we like this idea, but we know how to do it better. And I think that not only Kendall with reaching out without bricks and mortar, but just how they grow so intentionally is a great thing. Greystone is a developer out of Texas. They do a lot of very large builds. So they will have usually the standalone small nonprofit community that has done well, that needs a new building, that needs a new branding. They'll say, okay, we can do that for 100 million, 200 million. They sell bonds. They issue a bond issuance for debt. They do all of their marketing. Once the building has gotten to a 75% status, that's the stabilized market rate or the stabilized occupancy that tells the community that it's fully operational, they're done. So the management company that sold you on something is no longer there. And it could be an executive director or any management that is going to take it away from there. Greystone does it well, but they also do it to make a very high-end product. This is interesting. And please, my typos, I had to redo a lot of this morning, so it's not as polished as I really hope for you to have. But home builders are recognizing that, wow, there is a large group of people that need a type of first floor standalone condos, intergenerational community. What the banks won't give, though, is the money to build those if they don't have the experience to manage. So Redstone Homes, the sixth largest builder here in Michigan, had to hire the Franciscans out of Chicago to manage their community. And is that a good or bad thing? It can be a great when that collaboration is in line. But that's very true with many startup communities, is that they cannot get loans unless they have a very strong background in and proven management styles. Life Care Services, or LCS. Has anyone heard of this community management before? Life Care Services is publicly traded. So you have your shareholders. It is based out of Iowa. Have you heard of in Florida, the Villages? Life Care Services bought the Villages. They operate the most in the country per resident. When I say for a profit, you should really look up and see what the CEO makes for his salary. And I think it's very important to know where your dollars go and who says what stays at a community level and what goes into the profits of the management company. What's unique with Life Care Services is what they typically do is own a percentage of the community, 48%, 49%, and then somebody like Health Peak will own 51%. So they have majority rule of bricks and mortar and can say, you know what? We're not painting this year. That's not how we allocate our money. You might have a resident council that says, we need paint, but knowing that you have a management company, you have an ownership, are the residents truly the voice that's stronger? And I truly believe it is, because together your voice should always be resident driven, family, then staff. Anytime you feel that that is not in the order of how you're being treated, push for it or find what does align. Have we all heard of Rest Haven? What a beautiful local deep-rooted community. I don't know too much about it other than something new is coming. And I think that's great. But I hope you're able to kind of peel away some layers just with some thoughts that we're going through. I was very surprised to see that Sunset purchased a community in Grand Haven. Sunset is another publicly traded community focusing more on the need-based assisted level of care. They're throughout. I would just strongly read reviews and really go, into each community with a deep look. American Houses, that's a very Michigan-based out of Detroit management company. They do what they do, and it's worth exploring. Tour. What I loved about one community was the priority list. You put $1,000 down, you get invited to this group, and good party. Join everyone. I think it's so good to I don't want to say take advantage, but if they offer lunches, they offer things, do that and be very firm of, my plan is just to research. I say that, but I also hope for you to move 5 years before you think you need to. Make your research the same approach as you did maybe when you were researching colleges and universities. Let this be exciting. Really get in there and ask about what type of activities, what type of culture, stay over. Clark downtown, more towards Grand Rapids, very impressive history. They actually did a lot for age without restraints and memory care. I think any organization that lobbies at a higher state level is really in the best interest. And Kendall was actually a group that did away with age without restraint nationally. And I think that's what that speaks to is they're not just there to have you come and live, they're there to really improve the aging experience. In your handouts, I put together a list of questions that I hope everyone asks when researching a community. What are the reviews of the staff and residents? That's very transparent. Get to the bottom, get to the testimonials. I was a marketing agent for so long that I wanted to so much just say, go on Google. When you are in and being paid for as a community representative, your job is just to really promote that community, but really find other ways besides the paid representative to learn. What kind of services and amenities are offered? What are you paying for and what value does it have for you? It's amazing some of the things going into communities, but is it something you would really use? And do you use it now? And if you were to be there, would you really enjoy the pool or the wood shop? What are the costs and financial forecasts? And that's why I have a second printout that gives the national costs for healthcare. Can you afford it? How do you take between Social Security, maybe a pension, maybe savings in your house, and apply it to the healthcare needs? These actuarial projections are really intense, but I think you owe it to yourself to know that and your families so that fear is eliminated. I think the easiest thing to do is nothing, and change is really hard, but once you have the information, it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Why I keep advocating, get out and tour. You can instantly walk into a place and go, "Ooh, I like this. This is something I could really enjoy," or, "Oh, I don't ever want to go back." As you walk into any home, you get that feeling. So if you're thinking maybe it's 5 years or shorter, go enough so that it's not just a one-time experience. Thank you, Larry, for mentioning my little dog. I have a 14-year-old cockapoo, Sadie. She's geriatric. When I hope to become a mom, I'll have a geriatric pregnancy. And I use these marketing or these labels because how outdated. When I was opening that community back in Chicago, the Admiral at the Lake, the oldest nonprofit predating the Civil War, it began as the home for indigent and infirm females. I had to try to market that. But guess what they evolved into? The old people's home of Chicago. Not much better, but at that time it fit. Yes. And then they went with the Admiral at the Lake. It was an old hotel. I could give you some weird insights to what the Admiral in Chicago can mean, but evolving and just keeping up with these trends. I can't imagine, because it's something I have worked in, so I feel a little bit more savvy. And for you all to just have to learn this, and as you're trying to experience, it's very overwhelming. Take your time, talk to one another. I love having pets, but I hope there's just strict policies and they're enforced. I love animals, but who wants to be next to one that's barking or not being cared for? Get input from friends and family, people that know you the best. They're always going to be the ones to be in your corner to advocate for it. I think this is a good idea. I support you, but I also would support if you wanted to do it this way. I think the best people to surround yourselves with are those that are going to help you elevate and lift you up. What is the community like? Layout? Are there traveling options? Do they offer that transportation to the airport? Medical access. It's huge. Oh my. I think one of the best things I heard at a community was they brought in a neurologist and had every resident bring their medications and be evaluated and see, why in the world are you taking one that's going to counteract this one? So many times, I think you get just so into a routine that you don't step back and go, is this really the best way to feed my mind and body? And just cross-checking if your routine is really the best. And when you have a community offering you that, that's a great thing. So I hope these are just some general insights. Remember to know, what exactly are you getting for your fees? What are the add-ons? And what does your contract read? Get to a lawyer. If you can't, take the time to read 10, 15 pages of a contract and bylaws, have somebody else review it and bring up those points so that you don't feel like you missed something. Okay, any questions kind of on how you can fit your individual needs into researching communities? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about aging in place and what resources are there for people to, widen doorways and put in ramps and otherwise remove architectural barriers to aging in place?
Great question. And I think that's becoming even more and more of a desire. So, accessible or handicapped accessible floor plans. A lot of the homes, door frames, I'll start there, cannot accommodate a full wheelchair. So you would have to break out that frame so that you can comfortably get a mobility device through. That can range anywhere just from trim work to, about $1,000. That's an easy one. But once you're in, can your mobility device even get into the bathroom, rotate to get over to a toilet? So are you throwing too much good money after bad? The best thing I hope everyone has is a grab bar, just one-on-one, and not suction and not just put up by yourself. Truly find the stud, anchor that in, and become used to it. Just get yourself used to using things so that you can reduce fall. Please get a 4-inch or less walk-in shower. Shower falls are just one of the worst things I've seen for fractures and falls. That bathroom setup can really just be the one that makes you fully independent to now looking at assisted living and rehabs. So ramps, I hope for everyone not to be too dignified to not use a mobility device. They're doing some really cool things with them. Find one that makes you feel good. You can have a higher level. There's this one that Holland, of course, it's called the Alinger. It's a stand-up walker. So it's almost like a bike, and you just kind of kick your legs, it gets you stood up, but good exercise. Ramps, bathrooms, grab bars, technology, Alexas. You can set your medication reminders and even have your medication distributed. So if you can manage yourself and get yourself into those good routines, it's going to prolong the need for a high level of care tremendously. What other specifics?
I was wondering if there's a company that provides that service that can come into your home, do an evaluation and say, remove those doorknobs and put the levers on and widen this. I mean, is there a
I have
professional
not
company that
found
does
a
it?
service here. When I was working with, it's what I would do. And it comes just from the experience with my dad and stepmom, who we have redesigned multiple houses to make Sophie's, which I mean, just little things, get their microwave underneath. And it's so personal, you know, not to keep using their example, but they had to have the closet open right into their bathroom. Some would say, I don't ever want my clothes to be near my shower steam. So everyone's home has such a different layout, but reducing fall risk is first and foremost. And I think you're just talking about some of the opportunity. We're going to go on your SWOT when we do that later. Yeah. Somebody else thought of something? Okay. Ben Bastianin, has he logged on yet?
Yes, can you hear me?
Wrong way.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Ben. I hear you, but we're going to turn it up just a bit. We're so happy that you're coming in from Chicago, so it's an hour behind there. But Ben has lived here in Holland, Michigan, as well as Holland, Amsterdam. Hi, Ben. And he's going to share just a little bit about himself and the things that he has found to be a positive thing in retirement. Good day, Ben.
Yes, can you hear me?
We're going to try it just one more time to click up the volume. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
It went the other way. Bear with us. I
Hello?
call Ben.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Ben, can you turn your sound up just to see if that could help? Yeah, all of our sounds are turned up as high as I think we can go.
Okay. But can you hear me or am I still mute?
Yes, there it is.
Okay. So shall I start?
Yes, please. We're very excited to have your time and your insights. Thank you for joining us. Good day.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm was born in Holland, not Holland, Michigan, but the Netherlands. And I got hired by Johnson Controls eventually, who brought me and my wife to the United States. And we lived in Milwaukee, where the headquarters was. And well, and I became vice president and treasurer. So I made a nice career at Johnson Controls. And I love Holland, Michigan, because in the 90s, we meaning Johnson Controls, purchased Prince Corporation in Holland, Michigan, that I guess you are very familiar with. And it was a wonderful company very well managed, and it's now being run by Johnson Controls actually, and it's still very active and one of the jewels of Johnson Controls. I retired in 2004, had a great time, but we got older, and by 2011, my wife and I started thinking about, well, what are we going to do really when we age? And we don't want to be a burden on our children. So we started thinking about the CCRC. And Rose, my wife, and I read about it, and we traveled around a bit, and we visited 4 individual CCRCs, one of which was under construction, and that was the Admiral at the Lake in Chicago. And one of the salespeople there was Meredith. And Meredith worked with us and introduced us and discussed it all with us, and we decided that the Admiral at the Lake, although it wasn't finished yet, would probably be the nicest CCRC that we had seen. So we signed a contract with her and with the Admiral, and we were ready to move in, which we did in 2012 when the building was finished and people started to move in. We are very happy with it. If you wish, I can sort of quickly outline the financial aspects of it. There was an entrance fee that we had to pay, and then there were monthly assessments that we were going to pay. The entrance fee was reimbursable for either of 3 ways: 90%, 50%, or not at all. And the reimbursement then would be made when you left and when your apartment was again leased out to a new resident. And then if you took a reimbursement on the entrance fee of 50% or 0, then the monthly assessments amount that you were going to pay going forward were reduced according to a certain formula. Once you were entered in the Admiral at the Lake, there is a independent living section and a assisted living section, as was explained in the presentation. And the fees, the assessment fees, stay basically the same whether or not where you live, whether or not in assisted living or in independent living. So it provided you a lot of security. So we decided to actually do it. And our children were happy with it because they feel, you know, that they see that we are doing very well. And when you get older, you become a little lonely, you're less mobile, and you're on yourself. So when moving into a CCRC, there are a lot of people you become friendly with. The monthly assessments cover all your living expenses. So, you know, it's even real estate taxes are included in it. So you have, it's all affordable. And part of these monthly assessments are actually considered to be medical expenses that are tax deductible on your federal income tax return. So it's all very, very doable financially. Now, I think most CCRCs have a lot of facilities. The Admiral at the Lake have has, a gathering room, swimming pool, a gym, a theater, entertainment room, an art and hobby room. It's got a restaurant, a bistro, reception area, meal room, and you go on, all the facilities you normally need are available. And there is an enormous amount of organized activity. Every day is busy. You meet all these residents continuously, you build relationships, so it's very agreeable living as a senior citizen. The activities we have here at the Admiral at the Lake, for instance, about 30 resident committees. So every resident is involved in all kind of different aspects of activity, and that promotes the interrelationship between the people. So we are very happy we did it. We are now living here for 10 years. Our children are very happy we did it too, because they know we are well taken care of in a CCRC. So all in all, we think it was a great decision and we're happy to be here.
Aw, well, that's always a wonderful thing in life to not have regrets,
Yeah.
peace of mind. I don't have the questions in front of me, Ben. What's the next one? It was, the questions that we talked about. Is there anything else that, or was that all the summary? What about the differences in moving to the community before it was open to what it is like now?
Well, yeah, we moved into the Admiral in 2012. The people at that time were, I think, a little younger than the new residents that are moving in today. The average age, I think, in 2012 was about 68, 69. And now it is in the mid-70s.
And that's such a good point to mention. When a new community is opening, it is usually a much closer age to 70, and a community that has been operational over 10 years, that's aging in place, and is usually going to draw a group well into their higher 70s and early 80s. And that's another question that should go on what to ask for. Yeah, and Ben, here we have a question from the audience.
I was
Okay.
wondering, you were living in this community during COVID. How did that work out?
Yeah, that was, of course, not as nice as it was everywhere, but we had to wear masks. There were a lot of sanitary arrangements. We had COVID cases, but there were not many. I think the highest level we ever had were about 18 or so at the same time. And the residents in independent living here are about 300. In the assisted living area, the COVID restrictions were even stricter, but there was a lot of assistance of the personnel and the nurses and everything. So we were well taken care of. It was not a crisis. It was not pleasant, but it was not a crisis.
Well,
One of the
happy that
good
you had-
things, if I may add, is that over time, what the Admiral has done is medical services that are actually visiting in the building. So we don't have to go to a lot of outside doctors because we have a dermatologist who comes in every week. There's an audiologist. There is various other medical services that visit here, so you can just go in the building and have a consultation with them, and they'll take care of you. Does
That's
this
one
answer
way
the
to-
question?
Be preventative. And what statistics and so much of these large companies study is how to have people stay mind and body strong, because the best thing in a community it can be is healthy. Because once higher level of care is needed, that's going to cost a lot more money. And so the more that can be done to keep mind and body strong, the more solvent a community will be. So it really behooves anyone to just say, well, move in, figure it out yourselves, best of luck. Make sure you pay your $5,000 a month. You really need to have things like Ben's describing in order to keep it very positive. Another question, Ben, here from Debbie.
I'm sorry, but I'm wondering about staffing. I know a lot of places have had a lot of problems keeping their staff at the levels they want them to be. And especially since COVID, I'm wondering how that's working out.
Yeah, that is a good question. And in general, it's the turnover of people is more than what it used to be in the beginning. And I think that has a lot to do with COVID and the social changes that resulted from this pandemic. There is more turnover than we are used to, and we are trying to actually encourage employees to stay longer. And so we have, for instance, an education fund that residents freely, voluntarily can contribute to. And the relationship, I must say, between employees and residents is generally very, very positive. They like each other, and there are parties with a lot of employees participating in it and so on. But turnover has increased after COVID, unfortunately.
I think that's such a good topic to discuss, because the only way your amenities can be serviced is if a person is doing that. Why would you be paying for something that's not getting done? But how do we handle and approach the deficit? Ben, is the Admiral still doing affiliations with the colleges there and offering any type of scholarship funds?
Yes. Yeah, we have an employee education fund that residents can contribute to. Quite a few of the employees are actually students who also work at the Admiral and go to college, and we support them. Also, the Admiral has a relationship with, I believe, 2 or 3 universities in Chicago, under which residents can take lectures or participate in these colleges in educational activities.
And what I think is such an amazing collaboration there is it helps a caregiver see a future, not just, well, for the next 20 years, I'm going to be changing beds out and administering medications. It's a very hopeless and almost impossible for long term. Then that's where your turnover comes from. If you can empower somebody to keep moving up from being a frontline worker to maybe carrying a profession that can truly provide a lifestyle, it's lost. And what I thought was so beautifully done at Kendall is finding a way for the colleges to get the credits. So I throw that in here to say, what can we be doing for the faculty or the student body that gives the ability for communities at large to have some win-win. Yeah. If it can happen there, why can't it be happening here? Ben, Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that might be interesting here in Holland, Michigan?
Well, Holland, Michigan is a very nice community, but of course it's smaller than Chicago. And one of the participants was talking about transportation. Of course, as long as you drive a car, then that's great. But we have transportation services in the Admiral that on a daily basis have programs to bring residents to various places and back. And it seems to work pretty well. It's not a critical aspect. Also, where we are, there's a good bus service to downtown and so on. And of course, you have Uber, and our receptionists are experts in getting attractive taxi cabs and transportation arrangements for residents anytime.
That's such a nice, service that takes away the unknowns of who's driving me and how am I getting home.
Right.
Yeah. Are there any other questions here that you would like to hear from Ben? I mean, how we traveled around in a cargo ship to different ports was my favorite thing to learn about, but we really thank you for your time.
You're more than welcome.
From the Dutchman himself. Now we're gonna come into find your rock group and SWAT. So we're running just about 10 minutes behind. Are we okay with that? Do we want to do a SWAT? Awesome. So you have rocks, and that's supposed to be the group that you're going to get with. So on each of these areas, we have at Lynn's table, love and happiness. So this is a stand up, move around and find your rock group. Courage and strength will be right up here. I'm getting, do we want to do,
Over here. If you have pray on this one, you want pray over here.
Thank you, Larry. Yes, we have pray over here. So I'm sorry, Larry. This is inspire and imagine. So you will find at the end of the table, this is peace and pray, hope and healing, love and happiness. Courage and strength, love and happiness, dream and believe, inspire, imagine, celebrate and gratitude. And thanks for rolling with this. This is the first format of it. Pray. No, pray. We have pray. Is this pray? Yes. Yeah. Aw. Okay, so now that we are with your rock groups. Yeah, exactly. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. On the other side of your board, from your tallies, or use the same board, please do 4 quadrants: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And as a group, we're going to kind of dissect what is here in West Michigan so that we can exchange on things that we all haven't. So please appoint one person in your group to be the recorder and the person that's going to announce. So I'm going to start with strengths and kind of help you come through. So a strength would be, because we already said it, kind of a given, Evergreen Commons. I can keep going with it, but this is for you. The winners get the peace lily. So really give it some good thought because the winning group gets a good prize. First one is working on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. So I hope you've thought of some good strengths. Now, weaknesses. What are the things in the area that are okay, but it's not as good as it could be? We have a weakness that somebody's already identified as transportation. What other things that do we not have as a community? Okay, just kind of coming into opportunities. And coming into threats, what are things that threaten your ability to thrive to their highest capacity as a retiree in the area? Are you threatened by costs? Are you threatened by too much competition? So are you threatened by, yeah. Okay, do you think we have a good? I just want to respect your time because I want to get to trivia too. Okay, so please appoint the representative in your group to share the SWOT analysis as a community at large here. Who would like to go first? Thank you, Larry. Okay, what strengths did your group identify as the things that are being done very well and things that, okay. Does anyone have the microphone? Thank you. Okay. So this is coming from Rock Group. Peace. Peace prayer.
All right, so if I can read my handwriting, the strengths are first, not necessarily in this order, but this is one of the strengths. Evergreen Commons, HASP, Snow Mill, Parks and Trails, Hope Basketball, Hope College in general, and Holland is very friendly.
I love it. Okay. Any other, and who's next with strength?
Yes. Weaknesses.
Well, let's go, let's just stay on strength.
Okay, good.
Sorry. The next group for strength, is it, what rock group?
This is love,
Oh,
love and happiness.
okay.
Churches or faith-based community services is one big strength. Evergreen Commons has been mentioned, and the Gateway Mission Service.
That is a wonderful, yes, declutter, but give it to a good place. Great one. Next for strength.
Who wants to go next?
Yes, who's the rock group?
Well, the nonprofit charities. We're talking strengths yet?
Strengths.
I think a lot of them were mentioned, the parks, the heated sidewalks, cost of living, nonprofit charities, faith communities, rest haven, yeah, that kind of thing.
Some good things. Well, one thing's for sure is you're all finding what is available out there. Next. Does anyone have anything that hasn't been mentioned? Okay, weaknesses. Larry.
Start out with transportation. Finding your way around.
Mm.
Labor shortage.
Mm,
I think that's it.
yeah. And how do we get frontline workers to participate in community settings when they could be making more working at fast food?
So our weaknesses are the cost of living in the Holland area, a lack of transportation, and no assessment services for aging in place services.
Yes, we're very much lacking that. Okay, anyone else have something that for weaknesses?
I think in general, a lot of the zoning is fairly restrictive, limited in opportunities like accessory dwellings and things.
So maybe the city council needs to have a senior council member group.
I think a weakness is finding enough help to come in so you can stay in your home, for cooking and I know there's Meals on Wheels, but.
What else comes with it? It's not just dining, but home is your comfort. But again, if those bricks and mortars work against you, is it really the best place to be? But I agree. How do you have that?
I don't know how many people realize Holland, very low tiny town. They're in Park Township, Holland Township. It's all have separate zoning laws, so it's very complex zoning.
And you bring up a very good point. Please know that each county with zoning might have different regulations. So if your long-term care policy pays out in a certain county, but not another county, really know what county provides you with the right services.
Yeah, he asked me to mention again, it's a number of governments here, and it's not the city of Holland is a small piece of the governments here. Park Township being big, Holland Township being big.
Good point. Very siloed, but how do you maybe all come together so that you get the benefits that you all need?
These last three items that were mentioned aren't captured anywhere, and there's a lot of sharp minds in our class that are, can I ask that we consolidate these SWATs from each of the groups into one source document, including the three that are just made? And the reason is, first of all, I think it would be helpful for HAS to have that. And number two, it'd be helpful for an action plan that could be more publicly presented. And number three, if we got friends that want to move to the area, I don't remember all this stuff to whip it out quick a minute. And so can we write this down? Can you consolidate these things and capture those three things that were just mentioned?
I am so impressed with the HASP technology. It's all being recorded. And what I plan to do is find everything that didn't go so well, recap, and I will get that to Ian to then distribute.
Perfect, because that would be a really cool electronic handout. And I know my midgets are going to get it, my kids.
Yes.
Meredith, I might mention that we're already about 7-8 minutes over. We probably
Okay.
have to cut this off in the next 2 or 3 minutes because some of us have.
I know. I really want to respect your
I don't know
time.
how you want to close it out, but we probably should start closing it out.
I just wanted to mention one thing about end of life services, playing your funeral cemetery, regard of what township you're in has different prices. Different cemeteries have different prices that, even that has to be planned out and looked into.
Yes. Any threats? Just as yes, Larry.
We had gang activity and
Mm.
something else. I can't read my handwriting. Rising prices. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, inflation.
We had
Yeah.
loss of
Major
employees and
threats.
lack of affordable services.
Mm. And I think, how do you carry your social security that only went up so much when everything else is going up so much higher? Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm gonna amend the raffle just in respect for time. So what I'm hoping for you to do is all give yourselves one ticket for what we just did. And I think we can get through 5 questions if we really just power through, because this is the fun. I really want to end on a fun note. Number 1, Holland Windmill. When did it get rebuilt? Okay. When was it brought over from the Netherlands and reconstructed here in Holland? Okay, answers in. Next, 3 different options that you have available to you. Name one. Name one option that is available to you in your retirement. Not living options. One living. Yeah, Yep. This is the recap and pulling in the points. Please name one ADL, activity of daily living. What is one activity of daily living that communities look for in classifying the difference between being independent, assisted, or a skilled setting? That would not be one, but write it down and I'm going to give the answers and then you can get the tickets. So if you don't know, then it's just a question. What is the average age somebody begins their research project into retirement communities? And it's changed over the past 5 years tremendously. Okay, what does the Netherlands pay in contribution to their version of Social Security? In the Netherlands, so we here in the United States pay on average 6% into Social Security over the span of your working years. What do you think in Netherlands they're contributing to get back in a? Okay, so what does the Netherlands pay in their Social Security contributions? Okay. What is the number one amenity in most communities? Amenities, everything from housekeeping to dining to transportation. So please list what you think is the number one amenity that everyone likes in a community. What is the number one reason somebody will not make a move from their home? Name one top 10 retirement community in the country. What is one town or community in the country that ranks as the top 10? So if you were to Google top 10 retirement towns in the country, and then these are just kind of fun. Who won the most Academy Awards? In general, who has the most Academy Awards? Yes. Yep. And what?
Meredith, I'm going to ask you if we can do this. How about if anybody has any questions for your presentation, which we all appreciate very much, see you after we leave, but we are really way over time. And in respect to some of the people that might have to leave, we should probably cut it off at this point. So unless you got one more thing you want to wrap up with.
Just to throw your tickets in and we'll pick out a prize.
Okay.
Okay. Just don't go through the answers. Okay. So just whatever you feel has been a good answer. I am so sorry that. And we're going to just do 8 lilies and some chocolates. And I hope you have a beautiful Easter weekend.
All right. Thank you very much, Meredith.
Welcome.
We very much appreciated your presentation. Just make sure I win some chocolate.
Holland's the number one. 81 is people's research. Everyone got it, a raffle ticket in? Okay, so these are going to be 8 lilies. Please pick it up on your way out. Ticket number 951440. 951440. Okay, you got a lily. 951377. Ending in 377. All right, get your lily. Ending in 026. 026. Awesome. 026 good. Oh, good. I got your flowers wearing. Ending in 379. 379. 027. 062. And 2 lilies, give one away. Oh, sorry. And 049. Oh, good. 441. 441. Okay. So someone got it. All right, lucky day, 2 lilies. So that should be 8. 6, 7, 8 lilies. Now for chocolates, I got Dutch and German. So if you're a Dutch cookie person, please grab the cookies. If you wanted some German chocolates, grab the chocolates, ending in 400. 400. All right. 068. 068. Cool, Lily and chocolates. And two more. 064. 064. Oh, good. Okay, and 061. 061. Is it? So you got three? I picked. Okay, thank you. 318. All right, that's one of the chocolates. I very much look forward to sending out the follow-up recapping and just, I'm so happy you took your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Thank you.
I probably will reuse them. Yeah, I'll reuse them. I actually was hoping you would take it. Yeah, that's part of your bag.